Hello, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed our previous news and reviews segment covering a range of topics, a British final review, Tide's farewell, Jack Holder's holdback, Etheridge and Cook, and playoff latest and the latest e-bike developments. Please make sure you take a look if somehow you've missed it. Okay, this is Fanspul's lap 2 of episode 29. This will be our final segment this week. Stick with us till the end and I'll explain just why. Okay, some 5 years ago now, Mr. Bowen here published a now well-watched video on YouTube entitled Why Speedway is Failing. It was Paul's personal analysis and opinion on those key factors that were essentially working against the sport. It was a very well-intentioned piece of work from the heart. 5 years on though, perhaps some things have changed, perhaps some things have lessened, or perhaps some things have deepened. But we all know that we're fast headed towards the end of the current season and the prospect of another winter of AGM, another winter AGM of clubs, no doubt with competing priorities, different levels of capability and attitude, and different appetites for change. With all that in mind, we thought it would be helpful to revisit Paul's observation just at a high level and refresh those against current opinion 5 weeks on. So at least on this panel this week, and see if we can try again to focus attention on precisely what the sport needs to face into this winter. Paul, have you privately revisited your original thinking? Unbelievable, 5 years ago. Go on, Paul.
I can't believe I said this 5 years ago. Yeah. I'm going to have to get some moisturiser on. I'm looking a bit younger there. I still kind of think the video stands. Although I do think this year certainly has got better with what I've been harping on about. And I believe it was shown at a BSBA or SCB meeting or whatever it was. And I believe I've got some supporters of the video. And basically the video just describes me saying how the championship is too strong and that, you're trying to sell a product at the Premiership level for championship money. So all you're doing there is devaluing the Premiership, which is the top league of Speedway. Now, if you continue to do that, which is what they were doing, the championship was getting too strong, you start to wipe the Premiership. And then you start to lose your big clubs like Bellevue, Ipswich. The Premiership has, and it was on that track because this year we were nearly on course. Was it for 4 or 5 Premiership clubs?
5 at one time, yeah.
5 at one time. So, I believe they've all got together and created Northampton, which is absolutely fantastic. My main concern still is that the championship is a little bit too strong and that your clubs like Poole, Glasgow, certainly, I'm not saying they need to be forced into the Premiership, but if you want to make Speedway a bit more professional, those guys need to get in it. For the main reason being is you are watching a sport. If you go to Speedway and you want to watch the top level, you've got to be expected to pay £25 and watch your Pools and your top riders. If you offer the option to have Speedway for £15 and have the same riders, you will dismiss Speedway. And I really do harp on about it because I do want Speedway to carry on. And with Speedway now being on ITV, I think now if they can get that for next year and use the ethos of getting Premiership teams, proper Premiership teams in there and watering down the championship a little bit more, you'll find that Speedway will increase.
Thank you, Paul. You're right. If ITV could be, hopefully will be the platform to build forward on, then we've got to make sure that the product's right. So listen, I don't know whether I have misrepresented some of your original points, Paul, but I just want a quick skip through my paraphrasing of what I thought your video was telling us, and we'll compare notes on whether these things remain valid or not. So to kick off, number one, Speedway had an identity crisis. The sport has lost some clarity about what it is and who it's for. Presentation, messaging and branding are inconsistent across clubs and leagues. and fans struggle to explain Speedway to newcomers because the product varies so much. I would largely agree with all of that, Paul. In particular, I think the Premiership and the Championship, and this was the point you were just making, have largely lost their differential, largely due to doubling up riders and not having enough clubs. And tag on to that, for me at least, the NDL has completely lost its way. It needs to be far more certain of its core objectives and its purpose. Is it to develop riders, as the name suggests, or is it to be as competitive as possible and to win at all costs? And I would cite Kingsline Young Stars signing of Edward Kennett last week as my point in case. Sorry, Jason Pipe, if you're watching. Crabby, what do you think? Is British Speedway still suffering from a bit of an identity crisis, do you think?
Well, they keep saying that there isn't enough riders to go around. It's their own doing, isn't it, that? Because I am 100% that this doubling up and doubling down, absolute. Yes, okay, maybe you could have the bottom couple doubling down. I'm not sure how, but that doubling up has got to stop. And as Paul, I agree with what Paul says. They've made the Premiership, is it? That the second division, whatever you call it. They've made that so strong because of the doubling up and down that it's kept a lot of the lads out of the NDL. It's kept them out of them teams, because they've gone putting, well, you've got Glasgow, haven't you? You've got Bomber coming in at Glasgow. I think Kyle Howard was doubling up and down, wasn't he? But Kyle is a second division rider, isn't he? Or he was. I just think this doubling up, it's gone too far and it's got to be stopped somehow. Maybe a couple of riders, I don't know. And I know they said they'd done it to give riders more chance and more meetings. I understand that to a degree as well. But you know what? If they can't make a living just out of Speedway, they won't get a job and work as well as ride Speedway. I don't for 1 minute talk about Chris Harris going to get a job, but you're less alike. You don't want to go to work, do they? They just want to be a Speedway rider, that's it. And possibly at the minute, there isn't enough meetings for them to just be a Speedway rider. I don't know, I'm contradicting myself here all over. I'm not sure. The doubling up has got to be cut back somehow.
Yeah, but if you could double up as National League to Championship potentially, as if you're top National League and got Championship.
Yeah, definitely.
But if you're in that Premiership, bar the reserves, you should be earning your income, and you've also got another revenue stream of Poland, Sweden. If you're riding in the Premiership, you've got the option to race in another country.
Maybe. Some have. Not all, Paul. Not all.
Not all, but that's what I mean. But you can't have the top ones and twos of the Championship doubling up. But if they were to double up, it should be at the stage where if you're first and second in the Championship, if you go to the Premiership, you should be 7 and 6.
Yeah, definitely. How it used to be, you mean?
Yeah,
That's how it used to be.
You cannot be the level where you're a heat leader.
No.
Yeah, it's a credibility thing as much as anything else. But listen, hold that thought, because later on we're going to talk about something which kind of suggests that maybe the thinking is changing around doubling up. So hold that thought and we'll come back to that. Next up, the fan experience needs modernising. So we're talking about getting the product better and getting it right. So Speedway needs to feel like a modern entertainment product, not just a race meeting. Presentation, atmosphere needs to be elevated. Fans should leave the stadium thinking that was an event. It wasn't just 4 laps of racing repeated 15 times. That all resonates with me. Paul, to improve the product and the presentation and make it more of an event, in my opinion, that needn't be anything too sophisticated or expensive. It's imagination, it's variety, it's filling gaps, it's creating interactivity. And all of that has to be good for crowd retention as well, Paul.
Well, not to be biased here, but I think Bellevue's getting on there as creating probably one of the better shows at night. You've got Chase the Ace, who's a superb mascot. And I believe now that they're doing the AI with the surroundings, and they're kind of making it a bit more like a show and an entertainment. There's nothing more boring for me than, I don't think there's many tracks that do it now. You used to have a guy, 60s, 70s, 80s, no offense to anybody that's doing it. At number 1, Carl Howarth. At number 2, Josh Pick. It was awful. And, you ain't getting any kids into that. It's got to be a show. It's got to be enticeful. Clubs have got to do more now than they ever have. You know what I mean? The product on its own, unfortunately, is enough, because you've got strong competition from other sports, from other things, from Netflix. Do you know what I mean? To social media, people on the phones. You've got to have that bit more of shazal, shall we say? About the sport, and that includes getting the audience going.
A bit more of what, Paul?
Is it shazal? Shazaz?
We spoke about this a few weeks ago, Derek. What would be wrong with bringing the golden helmet, the silver helmet back? Okay, that isn't every night, but it's just something else what people follow about. It's just one race, that's all. But it doesn't cost £1 million to put that one race on, does it? And it creates a little bit of interest right to the, another race, isn't it? You've seen the silver helmet at Glasgow, I'm sure, over the years. A long
time ago, but I would have it back in a heartbeat, Nigel. I think that would add something to the odd meeting.
It's going to cost something, but you're giving the crowd something as well, aren't you? We've got to entertain them more. Like Paul says, there's got to be entertainment all the way through. We can't just have 15 races and then everybody go home.
Yeah. But let's move on. So, Paul, you mentioned a couple of minutes ago that Speedway is competing for the leisure pound, competing for people's attention, people's loyalty, all that good stuff. So that kind of leans into more and more, and much more so than has been the case, that Speedway and individual clubs need to begin to think and act much more like businesses. So they've got to. In my opinion, clubs, and British Speedway in particular, has been much more reactive than proactive in terms of strategic planning and strategic thinking. There's a need for proper marketing and an uplift in customer experience planning. Speedway can't just rely on the nostalgia alone. It needs to be professional, and it has to think about what it's doing and the customer journey that it presents, Paul.
Well, this is it. And to be fair, for anyone at the BSPA, I think you need to hire someone that is in marketing, not that's fallen into the job. You've got to get someone into, like you say, it's got to be marketed correctly. It's not the same to put it in your Sunday paper or put it on a lamppost or whatever you used to do back in the 80s. Now is the time where we need strong marketing. And I think there are clubs that are doing that or certainly getting better at it. And also, I see it more and more now, which I've always wondered why they ain't doing, more experiences, more coming down a little bit early, meet and greet the riders. I don't know, really, there should be, if it was me, if I was a club owner, I would do it a bit like you go to BSB or you go to MotoGP or wherever. They have the little chairs with a little signing table, and the crowd just go along, sign the rider, sign a poster, here's a picture for the kiddie. And the riders spend, 20 minutes, pit gates open, 20 minutes, the crowd come in, they get the experience of meeting the riders, they get the sign, they get the pictures, into the racing they go, they get the food, they get you've got to sell an experience, do you know what I mean? And they offer, like now a lot of them are doing the press conferences after, in the bar, come and have a speak to the riders, come and have a drink, it's all money as well, coming earlier, getting a drink, getting a burger, getting your dinner, staying for another pint. It's all money, and it's retaining, not just, like Nigel says, having them in for the 15 minutes and going home. You need them to be buying stuff and spending the money, but wanting to come back. That is the key.
Completely, Paul. And, I'm thinking some another way to describe what you just said. It's making the whole Speedway experience much more immersive. So let's make better use of creating a narrative. You know, a rivalry between riders, a rivalry between teams. Let's make more use of riders as personalities, and you know, just make it a much more immersive, enjoyable event, really.
I'd love that. I'd love for a bit of theatre, and I think you've only got to look at you know, the MMA. You know, I don't think some of them fighters actually hate each other. I think they're having a sit down and saying, you know, look, you're going to have to talk some smack here, and you're going to have to talk bad of him. You know, like you said, it would be nice if there was a bit of a story role. Whereas if, you know, like, all right, like you've got Jai Average and Ben Cook incident. Do you know what I mean? Get a thing, or Ben saying, oh, Jai did it on purpose. You wait, you watch out. And Jai saying, oh, I can't wait to race you again. Guarantee the next time that they race against each other, people will go, there's going to be a kickoff between Ben and Jai. Let's watch it.
Yeah, the problem there, Paul, is I agree 100%. And you know what? Years ago, that happened all the time. It didn't have to be forced to happen. It used to happen. Nowadays, they will not allow it to happen. The BSPA, the referees, they will stop that in an instant.
But I'm not saying he has to go over and punch him in the mouth like what's his face did. But like, you know, we've got these mobiles. You might have seen them now. You're a bit older, but you know, but they could do this bit of social media. Do you know what I mean? Where they're doing this. Oh, you know, I'm going to get you next time. And do you know what I mean? They could be texting each other, being best buddies. Do you know what I mean?
The BSPA and the referees have got to fall into that as well and let that happen. They will stop it happening. I guarantee you, they will stop that happening.
I think there needs to be a relaxation, an agreeable, acceptable level of relaxation around that, Nigel.
You're dead right what you're saying, Paul. It does need to happen. It certainly does. But
do you know what I believe the biggest Speedway video watched is?
It'd be something doing with
Speedway fights.
Yeah, of course they are.
I'm not condoning it either. I don't think it should happen, but I would say the theatre of it potentially happen.
But you know what? When people go to ice hockey, do they just go to watch that puck go up and down the ice? Of course, they bleeding don't. They go because they know there's going to be a load of hassle, don't they? There's going to be fights break out. I've never ever have I known. And I've been going Speedway since I was 8-year-old. I have never known anything break out into a crowd. Never really.
Do you know what, Nigel? Even when you think about it, even in darts and even in snooker these days, you get a little bit of argy-bargy, a little bit of aggro between certain players.
Yeah, I don't think it should be as extreme as ice hockey. I think, you know, I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But what do they go to ice hockey to watch? They go to watch the hassle, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm not saying Speedway would be like that. Not at all.
But there again, like it goes back to the MMA and the boxing fights. It's the build-up. Half of you is the build-up of all the smack talk, as they call it. Half of the people wanting to watch is like, I really want to see who wins. So if you had a bit of a theatrical between the two riders of like, I can't wait to meet him again, I'm going to wipe him out or whatever, people are going to tune in just to see if it happens.
Of course they are. Of course, 100% with you on it, Paul. 100%. Who's the most talked about Grand Prix rider at the moment? It ain't Bartos, it ain't Brady Kurtz, it ain't Robert Lambert. It's who is it, innit? Casper Wyon or whatever you call him. There you go. Is he the most talked about at the minute?
You're probably right, Nigel, yeah.
He's full of his crackers. But he's entertaining. I don't say it's right, just what he does all the time. I'm not. But people go away talking about him, don't they? Because
Nicky.
It's a talking point.
Nicky was the man, wasn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Of course he was. He was the one that put bums on seats, wasn't he? And all these drips that go around saying he should be banned and everything. What a load of rubbish. What? You know, they're probably the ones that sit and can't wait to see him go out and ride. Probably want to see him get wiped out. But, you know, they want to see Nicky Pedersen, didn't they? You know.
To just go back to something Sorry, Nigel, just to go back to something we talked about earlier. We talked about, raising standards and standardising things. And it occurs to me, Paul, that, it should not be impossible that British Speedway as an entity identified and agreed and introduced some sort of minimum standards in terms of meeting presentation. So, regardless of which stadium you're in the UK, you should expect to see a minimum number of things happening. It could be the way that the riders are presented, it could be use of music, it could be interactivity with fans, whatever it might be, but there's a minimum amount that each club's got to invest into its meeting presentation.
Again, it kind of goes back to my point of they need to have somebody in there that is a specialist marketing guy that, like you said, goes down to these tracks and says, look, this is how we do it. This is what's created views. These are the options you can do. Do you know what I mean? Bloody hell, mow your grass for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? All this kind of small presentation stuff.
Yeah.
You've got Phil Morris, who I think has probably been the best thing to happen to British Speedway in a long time. And to be honest, I think he should just get the reins and run it. But you need somebody in marketing, somebody in entertainment, perhaps. Get rid of these, I understand promoters have all got an invested interest. You get rid of some of these, get rid of some of the old boys, do you know what I mean, that have been in it for how long and go, oh yeah, but that's the way we've always done it. They need to sort of adapt and change very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think really now is the time to sort of say, look, for me now, I wanted to excel the business. And I needed someone to run the bakery. Funny enough, my background isn't food bakery, but I employ the best person for that role. I understand that some of these promoters have fallen into a club, have fallen into Speedway, have got a bit of cash and gone, well, yeah, that's how I think you should do it. No, let's hire someone who's in entertainment to push this, and like you say, have a minimum standard. Do you know what I mean? There should be a championship standard and a premiership standard, and if you want to be in the premiership and you want to be the top flag, this is what you've got to do.
I like it, Paul. Another thing which is kind of related to that, and I think something that Speedway underplays and doesn't spend enough time considering is, if all this marketing activity and making things better, if that's going to be successful in attracting a new audience into the stadiums around the country, we've got to make sure that those new eyes on those eyeballs completely understand what they're seeing. So, yeah, I do think that to some extent, maybe the sport could be simplified, or some of the rules could be simplified, and some effort expended into making sure that if you've paid your money to watch Speedway, you completely understand what you're seeing.
Yeah, one thing for me, I'll tell you I do right now, Derek. One thing I do right now, if I was control the SCB, first thing I'd do, I know it's only small, you'd do 1 to 7 skill level. So number 1 is number 1, number 2 is what is now number 5, 3, 4, 5, so on. You try and explain the numbers to a new person and they just look at you with a blank face. Do you know what I mean? You've got to make it easier to understand, and that's a very small rule change I'd do, but something that would help new people get into Speedway. I think the point system's fine. And the way the heats are run is fine, but like small changes like that, for me, like you can change that, you could do that next year, and I think more people would get it quickly.
I like that, Paul. It's such a simple, straightforward, sensible idea, but it's alien to the three of us who have been brought up on Speedway, and we understand number 5's not the 5th best rider, etc. But it's a simple change, but a very powerful one. Nigel, can you see the logic in just trying to open up and make the sport much more understandable?
100%. Yeah, it's got to be understood, because for 4 riders doing 4 laps, it's so complicated at times, the rules. I mean, the rule book it gets thicker every year, I'm sure. It'll be thicker than the Bible soon, won't it? But it's so simple. But again, as Paul says, and I can go back to the Stoke days here, we tried doing things at Stoke to make it better, a bit more entertaining wise, parade and everything. But I'll tell you what, some of the people had been at Stoke from year dot, and because we're all getting older, we don't like change, some people, do we? But it's got to change, hasn't it? It's got to move with the times.
Yeah, but what would want to, like, say the small rule of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? How would that affect an old person? It wouldn't really, would it? They'd just quickly understand it, whereas someone new that doesn't understand it understands it straight away.
Yeah,
so
that's
straight away, you've got an easy conversion from a new person understanding it to not, and an old person going, well, I prefer seeing number 5. Well, maybe you do, but you know it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. do you know what I mean? It's you've got to make it easy. I've been reading a lot of marketing emails now. They reckon the best marketing emails are ones that a year 5 could read, and that makes it easy. You've got to make things easy.
I mean, I'm just thinking, Paul, in the same vein, try explaining to someone who doesn't understand Speedway what's a heat leader, what's a second string, and what's a reserve. Is the reserve in the team or is he not in the team?
Yeah. Again, that could be on the. Again, you could do that like within the column if it is 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you know what I mean? It might be something that you do. And whether you call them heat leaders or main body or whatever, that's here and there. But at least the number. Your 1s and 2s are your be celebrities, and they'll be the ones that you're gunning for. I just like I say, just small little changes. I know
I'm not sure as that one is. I don't know whether. Yeah, because you don't have to have number 1 and 2 racing against each other, do you?
No. That's what I mean. You could still keep them running as it is, but just have it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. You just have. I understand what you mean. Yeah, definitely. Your best man at number 1. Makes it simple.
A small, simple but powerful change. Listen, I want to move on to the final point. And Paul, I hope this is the one that most resonates with me, and probably, in my view, is the key principle of your video 5 years ago. And it's to do with, it's the fundamental thing about the sport needs to have a clear vision. So Speedway needs to decide what it wants to be in the next 5 years or 10 years. Without a shared vision, clubs pull in different directions. We see that. Leadership, direction, and a unified strategy. It's got to be the baseline to build forward from. I want to just surface a couple of things. So that very principle, Paul, it resonates with me big time, and it remains, in my view, the biggest challenge for British Speedway. I remain hopeful that Richard Coleman and people like him, the Richard Colemans of this world, could help to land the significance of setting out that strategy. It forms the foundations, and it might take a few seasons to manufacture and move some of the building blocks into place, but at least if all the clubs were going in the same direction, that would be powerful. Paul, when we talked earlier on about doubling up, and I said I was going to come back to it, and this was the point I wanted to make. So to strengthen the point about strategy, in a very recent Speedway Star feature, Edinburgh promoter John Campbell is quoted as saying, quote, "Every team in the championship this year wants to ride in the championship next year." However, in the same article, John's also quoted as saying, "Everybody in the championship would like one big Luke, and there might be 1 or 2 teams in the Premiership that might like one big league, but there are tracks in the Premiership that don't want one big league." Right there, crystallised, Paul, is the fundamental disagreement that this sport needs to repair very quickly.
I'm telling you now, and you can put this on record, you have one league, you're having a Saturday and Sunday sport. It might not be, it won't be the first year, because the first year everyone will go, "Oh, this is great, this is mint." But I'm telling you now, you're going to have a Saturday and Sunday league. It's going to go to amateur racing. It'll be the start of the decline, because you haven't got the riders, and the foreign riders will choose Poland over the UK. So you'll if you have a one league, you will lose Speedway within. I wouldn't say you'll lose it; it'll carry on going, but you'll have essentially what is the championship, and it'll just get further and further watered down, and you'll have tracks like your Scunthorpes, you know what I mean, and you'll have your Stokes and all that back in the day, the ones, and it'll just be amateur racing. It'll just go to amateur racing. If you want to have a serious speedway sport, you've got to have progression. Now, you could have the one league if it was on ITV and British Speedway was the best place to watch Speedway. If Britain was the top of Speedway, you could have potentially your one league or your one big league, because you'd have loads of riders wanting to ride in Britain and being paid for it. How many clubs are going to sustain it? You're going to lose the top clubs and you're going to lose the very bottom ones, because the top clubs, there ain't enough money in it for them to do it. And in the bottom clubs, they can't compete with the middle, and it'll just shrink from the inside out. So that is my view on the one league. It's very strong against it, and I know a lot of people will probably hate me for it, but I just think the one league is the worst thing you can do. But in regards to the championship, Poole and Glasgow seriously need to have a wobble and be forced up. Both of them two are probably very professional outfits, followed probably closely by Edinburgh and Redcar. I'd see them up there as sort of like very professional and very out there. And if they are going to have one league, or they're going to have the two leagues, a development and a top league, it needs to be the top league. You can't be doing what they're doing now, and the problem is, the championship is just simply too strong. And I'll just come out and say, although I appreciate for everything Rob does, Rob's the head of the BSBA, and he also owns Scunthorpe Speedway, which is in the championship. So obviously he's going to put them invested interests first.
Do you know, it's interesting, Paul, because as a supporter of a championship club, and this isn't just my opinion, you know, obviously I speak to other fans as well, but, you know, year on year, certainly for the last 2 or 3 seasons, there's a perception at least that the championship has been diluted season on season, and the prospect of creating that bigger differential between the Premiership and an even more diluted championship isn't a lot of people palatable, Paul.
Yeah, but then go in the Premiership. I don't understand. Like I say, these clubs are saying, "Oh, yeah, but you're diluting it." Well, go in the Premiership.
You can't afford to, Paul.
Yeah, but then you can't afford to keep lowering the standards either. Do you know what I mean? That's like me saying, "Well, I can't afford top meat, so I'm going to put shit meat in it and hope no one notices."
No, I don't agree with you on this one. No, and I don't know where you get it's going to be Saturday, Sunday racing from, because it'll never be Sunday racing because of Poland. So it'll never ever be Sunday racing.
So you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them riders.
Lose them.
So you've lost. You've lost your top riders.
Yeah.
So your Max Fricks, your Brady Kurtz, your Dan Bewleys, all your top boys are going.
3 you've named.
Yeah,
That's 3 you've named. Yeah. Go on.
I'll keep Josh Pickering.
No, not necessarily.
Isn't that likely anyway, Paul, because of the change in the PZN ruling next season?
They're going to choose Poland first. All them boys, they're all going to choose Poland.
Are they getting paid in Poland?
Yeah, they are a lot.
Are they? Are they all getting paid?
Yeah,
you know that for a fact, do you?
Well, I know a lot of them are getting paid quite highly.
Yeah,
who's not getting paid?
I'm not saying who's not, but you know there's a lot getting paid. Everybody's getting paid, and everybody's earning massive bucks. Not everybody. Not everybody.
Well, no, and like I said, that's so basically you'd be left with the dregs.
But you will always have a star. You will always have a superstar. Always.
But then it's not professional, then, is it? You know what I mean? You
Speedway can't afford at the minute to be super professional. At the minute, it needs to start and build up, doesn't it?
The way it would be, if it was to do that, would be your free to wear.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. But we mustn't get carried away and think because we've had a British final, we're gonna get Speedway on ITV every week. I hope we do. Hey, I'm a bigger Speedway supporter as anybody, and I'm older than you young ones, and it does need the young ones coming in with these modern ideas. Without a doubt, it does. Without a doubt. But I don't know what good is. So you say take Glasgow out, and put them in the first division.
Yeah.
What good's that to Berwick and Edinburgh?
What do you mean? What's good for that? Well,
yeah, that's just you just ruined.
They're not competing with the expenditure of Glasgow.
No, they aren't. But Glasgow, Edinburgh, Berwick, when them three clubs ride against each other, which probably be 3 times a year, get massive crowds. Without one, the other isn't good.
Yeah, but then you could argue that, well, what's the point in riding against Plymouth?
What's the point in what?
What's the point in riding against Plymouth? What's the point in riding against Plymouth? Because they're too far away. You're saying, well, they're close, so they've got to be together. So what? Why go down to Plymouth?
You speak to Glasgow or Edinburgh or Berwick, and they'll all want each other.
Yeah, they will. But then at the same time, you would say that this is the point. So if Speedway was done correctly, you would have more crowd in the Premiership.
No,
because it would be the top level of Speedway, and people would pay. You would pay money to see better racing or faster racing. There's a reason why, like as I said, the GPs is 40 quid or whatever. Premiership should be, I don't know, 25 quid, and Championship should be 15 quid.
So what you're saying is...
So what I'm saying is, if you're watching a £15 sport, you can't have £25 riders.
If you want to see Dan Bewley, then the Glasgow public need to go to Bellevue. They will go to Bellevue to see Dan Bewley. Yeah,
but then what happens if they were racing again? What happens if Dan Bewley was coming to Glasgow?
Well, but that was my point earlier on about the one league.
Yeah, I know, but then at the same time, Dan Bewley ain't going to be there.
Why?
Because he'd choose Poland every time.
Well, eventually.
He would probably choose Poland, Sweden, and then England.
Do you know what I think this conversation proves? I think it proves that there is no one silver bullet solution. There's different ways that British people can flight and dice.
I think if you're a fan, you will go for the one league. I think if you're thinking about Speedway's longevity and finance, and if it'll be sustainable, you'll understand having a national league, a championship, and a premiership at them 3 levels.
I'm going to say something slightly controversial, Paul, but I'm not just saying this for convenience to agree with both of you. But I personally would either like to see one big league and everyone stuck on that idea, or a breakaway league, which is something akin to what you're talking about. So maybe an 8-team super premiership with the 8 strongest clubs on television, and hope that product can drag British Speedway upwards.
Yeah, to be fair, you know what I'd like to see? An FA Cup of Speedway. So start a national league and run it all the way through.
Yeah, they used to do that. It didn't work. They did that, you know.
Why did it not work?
I don't know why it got stopped, really, Paul, because I thought it was all right. But they used to do that. Not the National League, in fairness, but I don't think there was the National League. But they did have it in the like an FA Cup thing in the first.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it start as the National League, and the top 2 from the National League go into the Championship and so forth.
Yeah.
But
then they did do that.
And then it would expose you double downers as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably one reason why they can't do it, because of the doubling up and down, isn't it? You know, and I don't agree with that at all. Not to the extent it is.
Listen, I just thought it was interesting that in print, John Campbell, on behalf of the Championship, was suggesting that all clubs want to stay in the Championship and are supportive of one big league, and there might be some Premiership clubs also supportive of one big league. So listen, we will. This will be a never-ending conversation that we're going to have for the next few months, no doubt, until the news breaks. Listen, 360 viewers and listeners, we would love to hear your thoughts on all of this. You know, it's a meaty subject. There probably isn't a perfect solution, but we very much like to hear your inputs and your thoughts. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. Comment below this video. 360 Speedway will officially be on holiday next week. I'm off on my travels for some well-deserved sunshine and relaxation. If I can't say that, then no one else will. But alas, don't panic, because we have some fascinating content already scheduled while we're away. Look out for a 3-part sit-down conversation with one of the most respected figures from the world of British Speedway, a man who has spent his lifetime immersed in our sport. A promoter, a team manager, a commentator, amongst many other roles. He has literally lived and breathed Speedway. So he has got plenty to say about the sport too. Have a guess who you think that might be. We'll reveal his identity next Thursday night with an enjoyable 3-part conversation available as usual from next Friday at 11 AM. That is it from us this week. A 2-parter, but a long one at that. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion and the focus. Do get involved in the conversation. My sincere thanks to Nigel Crabtree and to Paul Bowen. Gents, you are very good value. I hope you've enjoyed getting back on behind the mic on 3.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you very much. And thanks, Nigel.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
So listen, keep backing your teams, keep watching the sport, keep fighting the fight for British Speedway, and we'll see you back on air very soon. Thank you, good night, bye-bye.
See you all.